Welcome back. So in this video, we are going to understand about the other forms of companies, right? In the previous video, we did about private company, public company, and OPC, right? Now in this, we are going to do about the other forms of companies. There are a lot of other forms of companies in which we are going to study today. Okay? So these are the other forms of companies. 11 forms we have. The first being company with charitable objects, that is Section 8 company. Okay, Section 8 companies are your not-for-profit companies, all right? And before in Companies Act 1956, they were known as Section 25 companies. In this company, these are those companies which do not really work for profit. That does not mean that they don't earn profit. They earn profit, but they use that profit only for the betterment of their own enterprise. As in, like you have a cricket coaching club. It's a Section 8 company. Okay, so you charge some fees from the students, and whatever fees you get after paying the expenses, if any surplus is left, okay, we don't call it profit, we call it surplus. So if any surplus is left, we don't distribute that to the shareholders. How we do in other companies, no, the profit, excess profit is distributed as dividends to the shareholders. In this, we don't do that. What we do is that surplus is utilized again for the benefit of the coaching academy only. So you could buy better equipments and so on, or have a new canteen facility, or have one more pavilion, those kind of things. So that is the company with charitable objects. Now let's study more about this company. What is the objects of this company? These companies, they always should have the object. Object means why are they here for? What is the reason of their existence? So object is promotion of commerce, art, science, sports, education, research, social welfare, religion, charity, protection of environment, or any such other object. So they can have these kind of objects which helps in the they can have these kind of objects as a Section 8 company. Okay. Then the second important point is apply profit for promoting the object. The profit which they earn cannot be distributed as dividend. It is only for promoting your own object, right? So if you're a sports company, you need to use that surplus for promoting your object of providing sports coaching only, all right? Third is prohibits payment of dividend. This already we discussed. They cannot distribute dividend, all right? Then the second type of the other form of company is government companies. Okay, it sounds very simple, but there are a few technicalities which you need to keep in mind for a government company. Now, what is a government company? In a government company, not less than 51% of the paid up share capital is held by either CG, that is central government, state government, that is SG, partly by the central government and partly by one or more state government. Fourth is subsidiary of any government company. I have already told you and explained you the subsidiary part. Till then, you need to understand if any company, in any company, if more than 51% of the paid up share capital, supposing the paid up share capital is 1 lakh rupees, if 51,000 of that is held by either central government or by, say, Tamil Nadu state government, or say 30% is held by central government, 10% is held by Karnataka government, and 20% is held by Tamil Nadu government. So it is more than 51% held by a combination of state and central governments. Okay, that is also a government company. And any government company which has a subsidiary, in that even if 51% paid up share capital is not held by government, then also it is known as a government company. Why? Because it is a subsidiary of a government company. Subsidiary, I told you, I'll be explaining shortly. Okay. So the next is your third point, holding and subsidiary company. Okay. Very, very, very important. Please take note. This is applicable to you even for your next executive level. All right. So what is a holding and subsidiary? There was a change in the definition of holding and subsidiary company, and hence this is more important. the holding company is a company which controls the composition of the board of directors. All right, that is one thing. Second thing is it exercises or controls more than 50% or one half of the total voting power, either on its own or together with one or more subsidiary companies. That's also a holding subsidiary company. Okay, so here you need to understand now what happens over here is, say I'll just display it to you. Now I would just like to explain this to you through a handwritten note that, yeah, this is the first point. The first point was that a company, it is controlling the composition of the board of directors. All right. So what happens is there's this company called A Limited. Okay. And under it, there is a company called B Limited. Now A Limited is not holding any shares in B Limited, but there are, say, 6 directors on the B Limited. Can you see this is a board of directors and there are 6 people over there. Okay. Now out of this 6, 4 of them, that means majority of them. The majority is appointed by whom? It is appointed by A Limited. Okay. So A Limited is not holding any shares in B Limited, but the majority of the directors on the board is appointed by A Limited. Right. In this case, A Limited is the holding company and B Limited is the subsidiary company. All right. So the first point is when one company controls the composition of the board of directors in another company, then it becomes a holding subsidiary relationship. And the second point which we did was it exercises or controls more than 50% of the total voting power, either on its own or with one or more subsidiary. Now coming to this, see, there's this company called A Limited. All right. Now this A Limited holds 60% voting power in B Limited. Be very careful. Initially the words were share capital, but now it has been changed to total voting power. All right. So don't use the word share capital. It's total voting power. Now A Limited holds 60% of the total voting power in B Limited. So what does it mean? B Limited is a subsidiary of A Limited, right? Because it is holding more than 50% in B Limited. Hence, B Limited is a subsidiary of A Limited. All right. Now, there is this another company called C Limited, and A Limited holds 40% of the voting power in C Limited. If it's holding 40% means what? It's not a subsidiary. But B Limited is holding 15% voting power in C Limited. So, A Limited on its own and along with one or more of its subsidiary holds more than 50%, then that company is also a subsidiary of A Limited. Means what? B Limited is holding 15%. Okay. A Limited is holding 40% voting power. So in C Limited, 55% voting power is held directly or indirectly by A Limited. Hence, C Limited is also a subsidiary of A Limited. This is one of the little difficult concepts. In case you people are still not clear on this, or you need, I think most of you would be clear, but if you still feel that, you know, you have one small doubt also, one iota of doubt also, if you have, get it cleared with us in the next week's live session. All right. Now, moving back. Okay. So there is this note. If you see, this note says that not more than 2 layers of subsidiaries allowed. It means what? That supposing A Limited has a subsidiary under it, B Limited. B Limited has a subsidiary under it, C Limited. So it becomes 2 layers. Up to 2 layers is allowed. Now C Limited cannot have a subsidiary under it. All right, that's not allowed. Why? Because it's only possible to have subsidiaries up to 2 layers. This is done so that there is proper control. You know, if you have too many subsidiaries, it becomes difficult to trace the source of the transactions that happen. So this is done to control fraud. Yeah. So what does control mean? The first point says controls the board of directors. Control means the power to appoint majority of directors or to influence the management and policy decisions. If one company is influencing the policy decisions of another company, and they are the ones who's directing everything, then that's also considered to be a holding and subsidiary relationship. Okay, I hope this part is clear, holding and subsidiary. Now, if you remember, we studied for government companies that any company which is a subsidiary of government company is also considered a government company. So if a government company holds more than 50% voting power in another company, that is also considered a government company. Similarly, for a public company, if a public company has more than 50% voting power in another company, that's also considered to be a public company, deemed to be a public company. All right. Now, next is we'll study about foreign companies. Foreign company is a company which is incorporated where? Outside India. Correct. Then the next part, any company which has a place of business in India. Okay, it should be incorporated where? Outside India. It has a place of business in India. And that place of business could be either as a physical office or only through electronic mode also. Okay, for example, they don't have a physical office, they don't have an agent, but they are doing things electronically in your country. Then also we consider them as a foreign company. And they are conducting any business activity in India in any other manner. So for Indian from the Indian government point of view, who is a foreign company? Company which was incorporated outside India, could have been Germany, okay? And that company has an office in India, either by itself or through an agent. It's a foreign company. It does not have any physical place, but it is doing business in India through electronic mode. Okay, electronic mode, all of you understand, right? It could be doing it through a website system, where in that case, what happens? Then also it's considered a foreign company. All right. So please remember this: incorporated outside India, but it is having a place of business in India, either through electronically, through itself, through its agent physically, and it's conducting business in India. So that is a foreign company. Now coming to the next part, that is your associate or joint venture. Okay. Associate is, it has a significant influence, but it is not a subsidiary, and it includes a joint venture. Now we already understood what is a subsidiary, right? When one company is holding more than 50% voting power in another company, it's a subsidiary. But supposing if one company is holding more than 20% but less than 50%, then they are considered associates. Okay. So coming back to this example where we studied about this, right? So in this, if you see, A Limited is holding 40% in C Limited. Now supposing that B Limited was not in the picture, then what would have happened? A and C would have been considered associate companies. But in this, B Limited, which is a subsidiary of A Limited, is holding 15% in C Limited. Hence, it is becoming 50 plus now. It is a subsidiary company. Okay. If B was not in the picture, then A and C would be considered as associate. So when two companies hold more than 20% but less than 50% voting power in each other, it is known as associate companies. All right. It's not like both of them have to hold with each other. Even one could be holding it with the other company. So that is your associate company. I have given the definition of significant influence over here. Significant influence is control of at least 20% voting power or the control or participation of business decisions under an agreement. It includes joint venture. Joint venture means an arrangement where the parties have joint control of the arrangements on the net assets. So when two companies enter into a, like for example, two companies say I am a CS coaching institute and there could be another CA coaching institute, and we come into a joint venture for a online class model, say. Okay, so then we are coming together for a particular venture that's known as joint venture, where by agreement we agree that on this net assets we both will work together and we'll have equal rights. So that is a joint venture. Then we both would be known as associate companies. Sorry. Okay. Next is your investment companies. Investment companies, Nidhi companies, small, dormant, producer, NBFC. These are few of the concepts which I want to teach you today. Coming to investment companies. Investment companies are those companies which invest in other companies. They do not have any of their own business, but they are companies which is formed to invest in other companies. All right. Then next is your Nidhi company. Nidhi company, explaining it in a simple fashion, is where Nidhi is a company which has been incorporated as a Nidhi with the object of cultivating the habit of thrift and saving amongst its members, receiving deposit, lending to members for their mutual benefits. Okay. So what does this mean? This basically means that Nidhi companies are those companies, they have members. Okay. The members come together and they form a company, And this is done so that the members have this habit of savings between themselves. Okay, so what they do is they all save the money, whatever is excess, and whenever any member needs the money, they can take it as a loan from the Nidhi company. So it's basically a group of members who save and who also give it as loan amongst its members only. All right, this is the basic definition of a Nidhi company is other than a public company. Important, please take note. This can be asked in MCQs. Paid up share capital of not more than 50 lakh or such higher amounts as may be prescribed, not exceeding 10 crore. This 10 crore is a new limit. Okay, and excuse me, turnover of not less than 2 crores according to previous year financial statement, or such higher amount as may be prescribed, not exceeding 100 crore. Okay, so this 100 crore is also a new limit which has been inserted. Okay, so what they are trying to say is, if any company which has a share capital of not more than 50 lakhs, okay, then you are a small company. Just keep in mind the two limits. One is your 50 lakhs and the turnover is 2 crore. So supposing if your share capital is say 10 lakh rupees and your turnover is 3 crore rupees, you are not a small company. Okay, you are a small company if your paid up share capital is also under 50 lakhs and your turnover is also equal to or under 2 crore. If you satisfy both the conditions, you are a small company. Or an and is very, very important to be noticed in the Companies Act, right? So over here, if you notice, the company is having, supposing say 40 lakh paid up share capital and turnover of 3 crores, not a small company. A company is having a turnover of only 1 crore, but a paid up share capital of 55 lakh, not a small company. Okay, so the limits is basically 50 lakh and 2 crore, but they have inserted this limits of higher limits of 10 crore and 100 crore over here, so that whenever they want to increase the limits, no, they can just give out a notification and increase the limits. So what have they told? Paid up share capital of not more than 50 lakh or higher amount as may be prescribed. Till now there is nothing which has been prescribed. Okay, till now the limit is 50 lakh only, but they have inserted this already beforehand itself, that higher amount may be prescribed, but that higher amount cannot be more than how much? 10 crore for paid up share capital. And same thing for turnover, the higher amount can be up to 100 crore, but not more than that. But right now, what is the limit? 2 crore. So you just need to remember this. This 10 crore and 100 crore limits have been inserted so that later on they can just give a notification and increase the limits up to that 10 crore limit or 100 crore limit. Okay. Right now the limit is 50 lakh and 2 crores. Then in the small company, very important is the exceptions. This small company definition of paid up share capital and turnover definition, this does not apply to a holding subsidiary company, a Section 8 company, and any company by a special act. Okay. So for example, you're having a Section 8 company, say you're running a cricket coaching club, and in that your paid up share capital is less than 50 lakhs and turnover is also less than 2 crores, but you cannot get the tag of a small company. All right, because when you get the tag of a small company, no, you get some other kind of benefits. Hence, they don't allow Section 8 company to become to claim as a small company. All right. Then the second is if you're a holding subsidiary. Okay. Then the small company thing does not apply to you. Okay. Because what happens is, just to get the benefit, what you might do is you have a paid up share capital of higher and you have a higher turnover. So what you do, you open a lot of subsidiaries under you so that your turnover comes down and you claim everything is a small company. So that's not fair, right? So to control this, what they have done is, if you have a holding subsidiary relationship, you will not get the benefit of a small company. So that is the purpose behind this. See, when you study Companies Act, no, you should always know the reason behind the section. What is the purpose behind those sections? Then only there's a point in studying law. Okay. Then the third is your special act company. Special act company we already studied, like SBI, your LIC, all those are special act companies. They cannot get the status of small company. All right. So the small company is very, very important. Please keep in mind the small company limits: paid up share capital 50 lakh, turnover 2 crore, the higher limits is 10 crore and 100 crore, and is there. Does not apply to 3 categories: holding subsidiaries, Section 8, Special Act. Please keep this in mind. Okay. The next, coming to dormant companies. Okay. So what is a dormant company? Do you know what is dormant? Dormant is basically sleeping. Okay. So we are going to study about those companies which are sleeping right now. Okay. They are not actively doing business. They are sleeping. Now let us understand about dormant companies. Okay. So what is a dormant company? Have you heard of the word hibernation? In hibernation, what happens now? There are certain animals which hibernate. I think you would have studied in the younger classes. Throughout the winter months, they sleep because they don't get food, so they sleep throughout the winter months. So hibernation is just like how bears sleep through the winter months. Now company also wants to sleep. Okay. Now if the company wants to sleep, company has to ask its mother, can I sleep? Okay. Now who is the mother of a company? Always remember, the mother of the company is registrar of companies. Because whatever the company does, it has to inform everything to its mother. Even if there is some decision which the court has given to the company, then also the company has to go and inform and intimate everything to the registrar of companies. Hence, ROC is known as the mother of the company. Okay. So now the company wants to sleep. What will it do? It will go and ask its mother, Mom, can I sleep now? Now let's see what happens. Now, which company can make an application to the registrar asking that can I become a dormant company? The companies which are formed and registered for a future project. We have registered the company right now, but we are not going to do any business right now. We'll do it. It's a future project. Maybe after 2 years, 3 years, we'll do. So in that case, those companies can ask to get the status of being a dormant company. They want to hold an asset or an intellectual property. Okay, so they have got this good land building. They have formed the company. They have got license. Say for mining, for example, they want to mine in a particular area. They have got the license and everything. So it's an intellectual property, right? So what happens is they form the company to hold the intellectual property, but mining work, they would start only after 2 or 3 years. So in this time, they get the status of a dormant company. That we are a company, we will start our work, but not now. Right now, we want to sleep for some time. Okay. And no significant accounting transaction. What is significant accounting transaction? See, if you are running a company, you would have to probably pay the rent. You probably have to have a watchman. You probably need to pay a basic EV bill and all those things. So those accounting transactions are not considered as significant accounting transaction. If you do any major purchase or sale in the company's account, then that is a significant accounting transaction. If you want to be a dormant company, there should be no significant accounting transaction. Okay. And any inactive company, any company which is not active right now, they can also ask for a status of a dormant company from the registrar. All right. So this is showing temporarily closed. It's not permanently closed, it's temporary. Okay. Now, what is an inactive company? This is also an important definition. A company which has been, a company which has not been carrying on any business or operation or has not made any significant accounting transaction during the last 2 financial years. 2 financial years, and has not filed any financial statement or annual returns during the 2 financial years. Now, for example, you have formed a company, but you did not do any accounting transactions for the past 2 years. You did not file your balance sheets and profit and loss account with the ROC. That is your financial statements. Okay. You did not file your annual returns with the ROC. For how many years? Past 2 years. Then you are categorized as an inactive company. Now you are an inactive company. You can ask for a dormancy status also. Okay. So do read this stuff from your, what do you call it? This book also. All right. So that is what is your dormant company. This is the definition of a dormant company. Whatever I've explained, they have also written over here. So you can read this. Okay. And now coming on to the next topic. Now, what else does a dormant company have to do? The dormant company should not have filed its financial statement or annual return for the past 2 years. Then what happens? The registrar will issue you a notice. and it will put the name of the company in the dormant company register, right? Excuse me. Now what happens is, you did not file your annual financial statements for 2 years. Now what will the ROC do? It will see you have not filed anything. It will send you a notice. We are going to put you in the list of dormant company. It will give you opportunity of being heard. Okay, if you have anything to say, they'll listen to you, and then they will put you in the dormant company register. It maintains a separate register where all the dormant companies are listed. Okay. Now, what is the conditions which the dormant company has to follow? Dormant company always has to maintain the minimum number of directors. What is the minimum number of directors? For OPC, it is 1. For public limited, it is 3. Private limited, it is 2. Okay. So please remember this figures always. The minimum number of directors for OPC is 1. Private is 2 and public is 3. That is the minimum number of directors, which even if you're a dormant company, you have to maintain it, right? Now, what does not apply to a dormant company? There is this concept of rotation of auditors. Okay, rotation of auditor for certain companies, no, after every 5 years, you have to change the auditor. It's known as rotation of auditor. But for dormant companies, this condition does not apply. If the company does not comply with these reasons, okay, so what happens is, even if you're a dormant company, you have to maintain minimum number of directors. You have to, you have to apply for a dormancy status. If you do not comply with all these things, what will happen? Your company's name would be striked off, means your name would be cut from the register. Just like if you don't pay fees in school or college, they say, no, we'll cut off your name from the roll, from the register. So that's how it is over here also. They strike off your name from the register. Coming on to the next topic, that is your producer companies. All right. What is a producer company? In producer company, what happens is that the members of the company are primary producers. Okay, it could be, say, something like 100 people who are together, and they all are, say, they all have cows. They all have small farms where they take out the milk of the cows. Okay, so they are engaged in a primary production. So all these people come together and form a company which is known as a producer company. In this company, the members are engaged in primary production. All right. So remember this, very important, section 581B of the Companies Act 1956. It's not a mistake. It's 1956. This producer companies, the 2013 Act has still not become applicable. So we still follow the 1956 Act for this section. The object of a producer company could be production, harvesting, procurement, grading, pooling, marketing, selling any of the primary produce of the members. Okay. So for example, if you're involved in agriculture or in poultry or in milk industry, so when this company is involved only for the members who are producing, they are going to give marketing help to the members, they're going to help them in selling. That's a producer company. They could process those things also, like preserving, drying, distilling, etc. Okay, so for example, if you are producing sweet corn, you could be involved in canning of the sweet corn. That's also a producer company. You could be selling the machinery which is used only by the members. Okay, you don't actually sell the machinery, you only import and manufacture the machinery which is used by your members. Okay, so agricultural equipments, it could be, say. It provides education and assistance to the members on how to improve your yield, how to improve the milk thing, how to improve the production of whatever vegetables you're growing, etc. You also give consultancy services to them. You help them in training and research. You also help them in getting them power, water, etc. So whatever support a member needs to be involved in primary production, that primary producer, you all know what is a primary producer, right? Who's involved with agriculture or the first level of production. So whatever help that member needs, a producer company does that for them. Okay. That is the definition of a producer company. Now, what is an NBFC? Non-banking financial company. These companies are basically just like banks, okay? They do all the functions like bank, but they're not a bank, all right? So what does the NBFC do? It is engaged in the business of giving loans and advances, acquiring share, stock, bond, debentures, and insurance businesses, etc. It does not include any institution whose principal business is that of agriculture activity, industrial activity, purchase or sale of goods, etc. So if you are a company who's involved in any other agricultural activity, you're involved in selling or construction of any immovable property, then you are not considered a NBFC. NBFC is only those finance companies who are in the business of taking, giving loans, advances, and other financial things, okay? Shares, stocks, bonds, other financial instruments. They're involved in all these things. So that is what is a NBFC. So these are the various other forms of companies, which is important. You need to remember all these things, guys, about a Section 8 company, government, holding subsidiary, etc. I'll be sharing and in fact grilling you with this weekly sessions on MCQs. Make sure you're prepared. Now coming on to the last topic of the video today, that is your formation of a company. Now there are three types in how you can again divide the companies. That is, it could be limited by share, limited by guarantee, or unlimited. I've already discussed this things a little previously in the sessions. Limited by share means whatever is the share capital of the company, that is the liability of the company. Okay? So it is limited by the share capital. Second is a limited by guarantee. There are certain members whose names are mentioned in the memorandum and they take up a guarantee of say 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, right? Like that. So that is the liability of the company. If when the company is being wound up, it has become insolvent, then what happens is first we use the assets of the company. For example, the company has a liability of 20 lakhs and an asset of say only 10 lakhs. Okay? So it's become insolvent basically, right? What is insolvent? When the liabilities become more than the assets. Okay. So the liability is 20 lakh, assets is 10 lakh. First, what will be done in dissolution? This 10 lakh of assets will be utilized for paying the liabilities. Okay. After that, also 10 more lakh of liabilities pending. For that 10 lakh, since it's a company limited by guarantee, we will see the memorandum and see which all people had given the guarantee. In that, whoever's names are there and whatever is the amount written, those people are liable to pay that much amount towards the liability of the company. But this is done only when the company is being wound up. Okay, you cannot ask them for the money when the company is expanding or wanting to put up a new factory. Say that time you do not ask them, the people who are there on the memorandum, no, that you gave a guarantee, you give the money. That time you will not ask them. All right. The third is unlimited. Unlimited is where the liability of the company is not limited. It's like the people who are the directors, their personal assets can also be touched for this. This is a very rare situation, but sometimes why the company becomes unlimited, it's a very rare situation. Why it happens is, say, the company has a very less share capital, okay? Company wants to borrow a huge amount from the bank. Now, the bank does not want to give that money on the company name. It says that the company does not have enough assets. If we give this loan and the company goes down, then how will we get our money back? So they say that you make this an unlimited company because personally the directors have enough money, okay? So in case the company does not pay, then we can ask the members to pay. Okay, members to pay, that is the shareholders to pay. So in those cases, the company is unlimited. It's just like a sole proprietorship or a partnership concern. Okay, where even if the company does not have money, the owner's personal assets can be touched to make good the loss. Okay, so this is about the various other forms of companies. That's all for the class today. And just a quick recap about Companies Act, whatever we have studied. The Companies Act, whatever we studied was, the first thing was about a little bit about the history, then where all it is applicable, that is to the whole of India and banking company, insurance company, electricity companies, etc. Then what are the types of company, private, public, OPC, other forms. Other forms, there was this huge list which we did today. And then there is a different kind of categorization on liability, limited by shares, guarantee, and unlimited. So this is all about the Companies Act 2013 that you people have. See you all in the next video. Till then, study hard. Bye-bye.